The #1 jersey will forever be retired for the Chicago Kid, and January 4, 2015, was officially declared Derrick Rose Day in Chicago. Finally, Derrick Rose returned to where his dreams began. The mayor of Chicago personally announced that January 4, 2025, would be Derrick Rose Day, followed by Derrick Rose Night at the Chicago Bulls home court. This was arguably the grandest retirement celebration for an NBA player in recent years, especially with the innovative and thoughtful details. In addition to various Derrick Rose-themed elements at the venue, many former Bulls teammates reunited, and outside the arena, 100,000 roses were arranged to form the shape of Derrick Rose's jersey. The choice of date was especially clever, January 4, 2025. The Bulls were playing the Knicks, and 1, 4, and 25 represent the jersey numbers Derrick Rose wore during his time in Chicago, New York, and high school. The current Knicks head coach, Tom Thibodeau, was Derrick Rose's coach during his Bulls era. Everything seemed predestined. This day belonged to Derrick Rose. That night, he cried. Why did he cry? Because at this Derrick Rose night, he was surrounded by his wife, who stood by him during his lowest moments, his mother, who raised him single-handedly, Luol Deng, who came all the way from Africa, his lifelong teammate and close friend Joakim Noah, and his son, who shares his love for basketball. With all his loved ones by his side, his emotions overflowed. As he gazed at the Bulls' warm-up jersey that encapsulated his career and heard the crowd chant MVP for him at the United Center, how could he possibly describe the happiness of that moment? He could only nod repeatedly and let the tears flow. Last season, when the Grizzlies waived Derrick Rose, and the Bulls, despite having a full roster, considered releasing a player to re-sign him and host a grand retirement ceremony. But Derrick Rose declined, simply because he didn't want another player to lose their spot because of him. Perhaps that's one of the reasons people love Derrick Rose: humble, kind, and unassuming, yet full of heroism. For Derrick Rose and his fans, this day might be the perfect ending. The Bulls' #1 will forever belong to the Chicago Kid. Receiving the honor of a retired jersey, Derrick Rose deserves it. Because the way we remember him is as the one who electrified the city. In 2008, he was just starting out, raw and fearless, going toe-to-toe with the defending champions in the playoffs. In his third year, he led the team to the league's best record and became the youngest MVP in history. Battling LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, weaving through defenses for layups, he was lightning fast, never looking back or turning away. Then came the fateful 2012 playoffs. Before collapsing with an injury, he had already missed most of the season due to injuries to his ACL and meniscus. When he returned, he was no longer the team's leader. His buzzer-beating three-pointer against the Cavaliers felt like his final defiance. He was traded, bounced between teams, nearly retired, and eventually found peace while inspiring the world. But to us, Derrick Rose will always be Chicago's #1. This Derrick Rose night featured two teams he played for, a date tied to his jersey numbers, and the presence of his mentors and teammates. We'll remember the shining moments and the heartbreaking injuries. They are all part of the story of the Windy City Assassin. That era carried the youth of countless fans. Everyone who lived through it has their own story. When 36-year-old Derrick Rose officially announced his retirement, the Bulls publicly thanked him. 7 years, from being the #1 overall draft pick to the youngest MVP in league history. While Derrick Rose didn't get to return to the Bulls to end his career, the team decided to honor him with a grand jersey retirement ceremony. The Bulls president personally called Derrick Rose to inform him of the team's decision to retire his jersey next season. As a Chicago native, Derrick Rose played 7 seasons for the Bulls. Although he didn't become the next Michael Jordan or bring a championship to the team, he became the youngest MVP in NBA history with the Bulls. The Bulls management believed this unique honor was reason enough to retire Derrick Rose's jersey. In fact, before Derrick Rose announced his retirement, the Bulls had considered offering him a short contract to retire as a Bull. However, the team's 15-man roster was already full. To sign Derrick Rose, they would have had to waive a player. In the end, Derrick Rose declined the offer, not wanting anyone else to be displaced for his sake. He even thoughtfully gave 16 roses to each of the 16 people who had helped him in his career. He also took out full-page retirement ads in newspapers in every city he had played in, as a tribute to the fans who supported him for 16 years. These 16 years taught Derrick Rose the value of grace and peace at the moment of farewell. As a No.1 draft pick who peaked upon entering the league, Derrick Rose and the Bulls had an almost perfect beginning. In the summer of 2008, during the Chicago draft, the Bulls unhesitatingly selected this talented guard from Chicago. As a freshman at the University of Memphis, Derrick Rose averaged 14.9 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 4.7 assists per game in college. He led Memphis to the championship game, and although they fell short, Derrick Rose's talent caught the attention of many NBA teams. And Derrick Rose didn't disappoint the Bulls management or Chicago fans. In his rookie season, Derrick Rose averaged 16.8 points, 3.9 rebounds, and 6.3 assists per game, leading the Bulls, who had only won 33 games the previous season, to the playoffs. In just one season, Derrick Rose gave Chicago fans hope for the team's resurgence. In his second season, Derrick Rose was selected as an All-Star, even surpassing Michael Jordan to become the youngest All-Star in Bulls history. By his third season, Derrick Rose had led the team to the top seed in the Eastern Conference. At just 22 years old, Derrick Rose became the youngest NBA player in history to win the Most Valuable Player award. At the time, all fans believed Derrick Rose would become the second Michael Jordan and that he could lead the Bulls to recreate the glory of the Michael Jordan era. However, the sudden injuries completely rewrote Derrick Rose's fate. In the year he lifted the MVP trophy, Derrick Rose faced injuries such as a toe sprain and back spasms. In 2012, during the first game of the Bulls' first-round playoff series against the 76ers, Derrick Rose suffered the first major injury of his career, a torn ACL. That severe injury kept Derrick Rose out of 99 games. In an interview, Derrick Rose recalled the moment of his injury, saying, "I remember everything from that time. I remember every moment I jumped into the air and hit the ground, and I heard the tearing sound. It was the closest thing I've ever felt to death. It was like the wind. Everything was stripped away from me." In 2013, just 10 games after returning from injury, Derrick Rose suffered a torn meniscus in his right knee, ending his season again. In 2015, Derrick Rose again faced a torn meniscus. The repeated injuries were like a sudden storm in Derrick Rose's life, taking away so much. One Rookie of the Year award, one MVP award, one first-team All-NBA selection, and 3 All-Star appearances were all the personal honors Derrick Rose achieved in his career. What's tragic is that all of these honors were won before his ACL tear in 2012. After leaving the Bulls for New York and later joining the Timberwolves, Derrick Rose kept trying to find his former self. 16 years passed, and no one knows how Derrick Rose managed to persevere. But it was precisely these experiences that made Derrick Rose one of the most unique Windy City assassins in NBA history. He gave countless fans who had endured life's hardships the hope to never give up. If you don't understand what Derrick Rose means to this city, you won't understand why Derrick Rose is missed by everyone in cold Chicago after so many years. Let's go back to 2008, when the Bulls selected Derrick Rose with the first overall pick, and this boy from Inglewood, Chicago became the pride of Chicago. Tom Edwards, who had been the Bulls announcer since 1976, would always introduce the players' universities when they entered the arena. Michael Jordan was from the University of North Carolina, Scottie Pippen was from the University of Arkansas, but when it came to Derrick Rose, he would always say, from Chicago, never mentioning Memphis University. In his rookie year, Derrick Rose was named Rookie of the Year with an average of 16.8 points and 6.3 assists, and in his first ever playoff game, he scored 36 points and 11 assists, leading the Bulls to a 7-game battle with the Celtics. At the time, Bulls GM John Paxson said, "We haven't had a superstar here for a long time, and I think Derrick is the one we've been waiting for." In his second year, he surpassed Michael Jordan and became the youngest All-Star in Bulls history. At the media day of his third season, when looking ahead to the new season, he said seriously, "Why can't I be the MVP of this league?" Then, in May 2011, Derrick Rose lifted the MVP trophy, becoming the youngest MVP in history. That summer, the Rose Rule was created. This was Derrick Rose's first 3 years with the Bulls, earth-shattering and impactful. Chicagoans really thought they had found the second Michael Jordan. But in the cold city of Chicago, the Rose began to wither due to injuries. In the first game of the 2012 playoffs, Derrick Rose tore his left ACL. On the way to the hospital, he cried and asked his mother, "Will my speed ever come back?" After returning in the 2014 season, after nearly 10 games, he suffered a torn meniscus in his right knee. This time, he told Bulls reporters, "I don't dream anymore. After my first injury, I had many dreams of returning to the court, but when I woke up, there was a heavy brace on my knee." The Bulls management said that whether as a player or as a person, Derrick represented the resilience and passion of this city. "He is the most resilient and determined athlete I've ever seen, always fighting through adversity, and these adversities often break most people." This was Derrick Rose's 8 years in Chicago, 3 years of brilliance, 5 years of injuries, and a peak that never came. But these brief 8 years carried the endless longing of many fans. Dwayne Wade once said, "If you don't like Derrick Rose, something is wrong with you." In the 58-year history of the Chicago Bulls, aside from the 1960s and 1970s players like Jerry Sloan and Bob Love, the only players whose jerseys were retired were Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Now, Derrick Rose will become the 5th. His jersey will not only hang high in the United Center's dome, but will also forever linger in the youth of countless people.